Today we're going to do something in the kitchen. We are going to make homemade Cheez-it crackers. Mikey and Eddie both love them, and whenever I make them, they're gone within a couple of hours. So, for today's recipe, I'm going to show you what you need so you can get it together if you want to follow along and make these too. We have 1 cup of all-purpose flour. We're going to need paprika, garlic powder, onion powder. This is my homemade onion powder. We're going to need some kosher salt. Now, if you don't have kosher salt, you can use regular table salt. You just want to use half the amount. We're also going to use a tablespoon or 2 of cold water, 6 tablespoons of salted butter, and the best part, cheddar cheese. Now, we're using sharp cheddar. I did do it with a mild or a medium cheddar cheese, but it did not taste as cheesy. We love the sharp cheddar in this recipe. Okay, and this is super easy. Now we're also going to use my food processor. If you don't have a food processor, you can do this by hand. It'll just take a little bit more time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grate up the cheese. Now, you could just go to the store, or if you have shredded cheese on hand, that will work. But I like the flavor of the block cheese better. It doesn't have the non-caking agent in it, and I think it just has a better flavor overall. So I'm using block cheese. And we are going to shred it with the food processor, and I'm going to leave the blade on the inside so it will actually chop it up even more after it is shredded. Now, if you're doing this by hand and you have a hand shredder, I would suggest doing it on the smallest holes or close to the smallest holes. You want a small shredded cheese. We're going to need 3 cups of the cheese. 3 cups of shredded cheese. Just going to take that out of there. Oh, cheese is so good. It's hard to keep Eddie out of it. All right, so like I said, we want 3 cups. I'm gonna call that 1. Two. And there's probably a 3rd one in here. Got that out of the way so I don't cut my fingers. Okay, so that's close enough to 3. I'm just going to dump it all in there. Actually, that was foolish. I don't want to dump it in there. Don't mind me. I actually did need to, so I put the blade back in. Okay. Now, we have 3 cups of cheddar cheese. We're going to put it back in here. Now, at this point, if you've shredded your cheese by hand because you don't have the food processor, that's fine. You're just going to put it into your bowl. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mix in the 1 cup of flour. All right, now we don't have the shredding blade in there. We just have the bottom blade, and we're gonna mix in the cup of flour. Okay, now we also want to mix in our spices. Let me get rid of this cheese. This is a very quick and easy recipe. Okay, we're going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder. A 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. A 1/4 teaspoon of the kosher salt. Now remember, if you don't have kosher, you would use 1/8 teaspoon of table salt. And we're going to use 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. And we'll mix that all in. Okay, now we need 6 tablespoons of cold butter. And we're gonna cut this into little cubes. Mine's not super cold. It's kind of warm in the kitchen. All right, so we cut it into little 1/2-inch cubes. And we're going to add it into the food processor. Now, if you're doing this by hand, just put it in and mash it with your hands until your flour and cheese mixture becomes like pea size. So we're just gonna pulse this and add the butter. If you can see in there, it's getting very crummy. Okay, we're going to add 1 to 2 tablespoons of cold water. Now, the less water you put in, the easier it's going to be to work this recipe. I usually use 1 tablespoon. So we're going to put 1 tablespoon in, and we're going to mix that up. Okay, so if you guys can see it now, this is coming together. This is coming together in really big chunks. So this is perfect. So 1 tablespoon of water again. That's what you want. You want a dough that's going to come together but not be sticky. Okay, once your dough has come together in those chunks, we're going to come over here to my nonstick counter and we're just going to pour it out. I just washed this counter so it's nice and clean. And we're going to work this dough together into a ball. Super simple. There we have it. A nice big ball of cheesy deliciousness. Okay. Now, we're going to need a rolling pin. Alright guys, I forgot to turn my oven on, so we're going to do that now. We're going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. We're going to use a baking sheet, whatever sort of baking sheet you have. And we're going to put some parchment paper onto it. This just makes it much easier for the crackers to come off. So we're just going to put a piece of parchment paper on there. Now we're going to work with half the dough. Just set the other half aside, and we're going to roll this out. Now, if your dough is really sticky, you can lightly flour your surface. Mine's not super sticky, but better safe than sorry. Let me get that pan out of the way. Okay, we're just going to roll this out as thin as you can get it. Now I would say about 1/8 of an inch. If you can roll it out to 1/8 of an inch, that's really good. It's okay if you can only get it down to 1/4 of an inch. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to just cut this into Cheez-It squares. That's pretty much it. So I'm going to square up my dough. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can make them all different shapes. You could use a little tiny cookie cutter if you wanted to. I just like to make little squares. They seem to, people don't eat them as fast the smaller they are. Okay, so we're just going to cut this into squares now. Yeah, that one was a little big. That's okay. And that's it. Then we're going to transfer these. Let's put the extra dough over there. Now we're going to transfer these onto our pan. And you don't need to really leave any room between them on the pan. They don't expand, so just crowd them on there. Get them on there. Get as many on there as you can. Okay, let me get these loaded on the pan and I will be right back. There we go, last one. Okay, that pan is full. Now we're still waiting on the oven to preheat. So I am going to roll out some more dough. I have another baking sheet, so I'm going to roll out some more dough while I wait for the oven to preheat, and then we'll be back. Okay, the oven is preheated to 350 degrees, so we're going to put these crackers in here. We're going to put them in for 16 minutes. Now I know my oven cooks them in 16 minutes, but because you guys haven't done it before, I would say to go with 15 to 20 minutes. So we've got 16 minutes on our clock. So I would set your timer for 15 to 20 minutes. I would check them either, 14, 15 minutes. I wouldn't let it go further than that before you check them. You want them to be crispy. You don't want them to be really soft. You want these to dry out. So now you can make them so that they're still soft. You'll just have to eat them sooner. These are going to be shelf stable on the counter in an airtight container for about 1 week. Now ours never lasts that long because as soon as I make them, Mikey's going to be in here wanting crackers and he'll eat most of them, and then whatever's left, Eddie will eat. So, but they'll be good as long as you've cooked them all the way through so that they're not doughy or gummy. They'll be good on the counter for 1 week or about 1 week, depending on, your humidity levels and whatever. But okay, so I will see you when we pull those out of the stove. All right, let's see what we got here. This was exactly 6 minutes. Try to get them out. Ooh, those look good. Uh-oh, the ones in the back there got a little brown. Let's shut that timer off. That one there got a little brown. But you see, they puff up. Ooh, very hot. But they do puff up. That's why I think the thinner you can roll your dough, the flatter they'll be, because they do puff up. But it smells so good in here. It smells so cheesy in here. I have another pan prepared here. And what I'm gonna do with this pan is you can sprinkle some flaky sea salt on here, but I'm just gonna use some of my kosher salt and I'm gonna sprinkle that on there. For people that really like salt or salty crackers, that's really good. I don't normally add too much salt because Mikey is the main person to eat these, and so I don't like to add extra salt. Now, if you have little ones that love the fishy crackers at the store, which all kids seem to love fishy crackers, these are a great alternative. They're homemade. You know exactly what's in them. Mikey loved fishy crackers when he was little. I mean, he still does. I would buy him one of those smaller bags of fishy crackers and he would just sit there and eat them all. This is a great alternative to that. You can have your kids make them with you if they're old enough, or they can just watch you make them, and that makes it more special. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you try the recipe. It is really, really good. And I thank you for sticking with me, and I'll see you next time.